The stagecoach lurched to a stop in front of the weathered general store, and Penelope Edwards knew she had made either the bravest or most foolish decision of her life as dust settled around the wheels, and she pressed both hands against her swollen belly. Cody, Wyoming looked exactly like every other frontier town she had passed through on her desperate journey west, all wooden buildings bleached gray by wind and sun, hitching posts lined with horses that barely lifted their heads at her arrival. September of 1883 had turned the landscape into shades of gold and amber, the distant mountains already wearing caps of early snow. She struggled down from the coach, her back aching from days of travel, her dress stretched tight across 8 months of pregnancy. The driver handed down her single carpet bag without meeting her eyes, and she knew what he was thinking because everyone thought it. A woman alone, heavily pregnant, arriving in a strange town with nothing but one bag to her name. She had $63 sewn into the lining of her coat and no plan beyond surviving the next few hours. The general store seemed as good a place as any to start, so she pushed through the door, hearing the bell jangle overhead. The interior was dim and smelled of coffee, leather, and tobacco. A woman behind the counter looked up from her ledger, her eyes widening slightly as she took in Penelope's condition. "Help you, miss." The woman's voice was neutral, neither friendly nor hostile. "I am looking for work," Penelope said, lifting her chin. "And lodging. I can cook, clean, so keep accounts. I am educated and hardworking." The woman set down her pencil slowly. "You are looking for work in that condition." "I am looking for work because of this condition." Penelope refused to let her voice shake. "I am alone, but I am capable. I will work harder than anyone you have ever employed." The woman studied her for a long moment, and Penelope could see her weighing options, making calculations. Finally, she shook her head. "I am sorry, I truly am, but I cannot help you. My husband would never allow it, and honestly, we do not have the space or the extra money right now." Penelope nodded stiffly and turned to leave, swallowing against the tightness in her throat. She tried 2 more establishments with the same results. The saloon owner actually laughed at her, though not unkindly, and told her to try the church. The boarding house owner took one look at her and said she was full up, though Penelope could see the lie in her eyes. She found herself standing on the wooden sidewalk as the afternoon sun slanted long across the street, fighting the urge to sit down right there and cry. The baby kicked hard against her ribs, as if to remind her that giving up was not an option. She had come too far, left too much behind in Philadelphia. The father of her child had been the son of her employer, a charming man who had made promises that evaporated the moment she told him she was expecting. His family had offered her money to disappear, and she had taken just enough for the journey west, wanting nothing more from them than distance. A horse and rider came down the street at an easy pace, and something made her look up. The man sat tall in the saddle, dressed in worn denim and a dark coat, a wide-brimmed hat pulled low against the sun. He reined in his horse right in front of her, and she found herself looking up into a face weathered by sun and wind, with eyes the color of a winter sky. He looked to be in his early 30s, lean and strong, with dark hair that needed cutting and a few days of beard stubble on his jaw. "You just came in on the stage," he said. "It was not a question." "I did." She straightened her shoulders, prepared for whatever judgment was coming. "You have been to every business on this street." Again, not a question. He had been watching, or someone had told him, small towns were like that. "I have." She met his gaze directly, refusing to be ashamed. He was quiet for a moment, his horse shifting beneath him. Then he said, "My name is Owen Fairfield. I run a ranch about 5 miles north of town. It is not much, just me and my foreman and about 200 head of cattle. The house is decent, but it is lonely. I lost my wife 3 years ago to fever. No children. I do my own cooking and cleaning, and I am terrible at both. I could use help." Penelope stared at him, certain she had misheard. "You are offering me employment. I am offering you and your child a place." He shifted in the saddle, looking almost uncomfortable. "I will not pretend to know your story, and I will not ask. But I can see you need help, and I happen to need help too. You would have your own room, meals, fair wages. When the baby comes, you would have time to recover. After that, if you want to stay on, you are welcome. If you want to leave, I will help you get wherever you are going." "Why?" The word came out sharper than she intended. "Why would you do this for a stranger?" Owen Fairfield looked away down the street, then back at her. "Because 3 years ago my wife was sick and we were new to this area. People helped us even though they did not know us. Mary died anyway, but those people gave us kindness when we needed it most. I figure I owe the world some of that kindness back." Penelope felt tears prick her eyes and blinked them away furiously. "I will not be charity, Mr. Fairfield. I will earn my keep. I am counting on it." He dismounted in one fluid motion and stood before her. Up close, she could see the lines around his eyes, the scar on his chin, the way his hands were calloused from hard work. "My foreman, Tom, lives in the bunkhouse. He is a good man, been with me since I bought the place. You will be safe at the ranch. I give you my word on that." She wanted to ask more questions, wanted to understand why this stranger was extending such an offer, but exhaustion was pulling at her, and the baby was doing what felt like somersaults inside her. "Very well," she said quietly. "I accept your offer, Mr. Fairfield." "Owen," he corrected. "If we are going to be living under the same roof, we might as well use first names. And you are Penelope Edwards." He nodded once, then gestured to his horse. "Penelope, can you ride, or should I get the wagon from the livery?" She looked at the horse, then down at her belly and nearly laughed. "I think the wagon might be wiser. Wait here." He swung back into the saddle. "I will be back in 10 minutes. She watched him ride away, her heart pounding. She was about to go off with a complete stranger to an isolated ranch. Every sensible part of her brain was screaming that this was dangerous and foolish. But what choice did she have? She could not sleep on the street. She could not give birth alone in some back alley. Sometimes survival meant taking risks, and right now, Owen Fairfield was the only risk available. True to his word, he returned within 10 minutes driving a sturdy wagon. He helped her up onto the seat with surprising gentleness, careful of her condition, then climbed up beside her and took the reins. They rode in silence through the town and out onto the open prairie, the mountains rising purple in the distance, the grass rippling like water in the breeze. "How far along are you?" he asked after a while. 8 months, maybe a little more," he nodded slowly. "There is a doctor in town, Doc Harrison. He is good at what he does. When your time comes, I will fetch him." "Thank you." She folded her hands over her belly. "You are being very kind. You are giving me a chance to eat something besides burned beans and jerky. I think we are both getting something out of this arrangement." She glanced at him, surprised to see the hint of a smile on his face. "Are you truly that bad a cook?" "Worse. Tom refuses to eat my stew anymore. Says he would rather chew leather." Despite everything, Penelope felt a small laugh escape her. "Then I suppose I have my work cut out for me." They fell back into comfortable silence, and she studied the landscape. It was so different from Philadelphia, so vast and empty and wild. The sky seemed to go on forever, and the air smelled of sage and grass, and something clean she could not name. She had been terrified during the entire journey west. But now, sitting beside this quiet cowboy as the wagon rolled across the prairie, She felt the first stirring of something that might have been hope. The ranch appeared as they crested a low rise, a collection of buildings nestled in a valley with a creek running through it. The house was sturdy timber and stone, built to withstand harsh winters, with a wide porch and real glass windows. Nearby stood a barn, a bunkhouse, several corrals, and various outbuildings. Cattle dotted the hillsides, grazing peacefully in the late afternoon sun. "It is beautiful," she said softly. Owen looked at his land with obvious pride. "It is home. Bought it 4 years ago with everything I had saved. Mary and I were going to build it into something great." His voice caught slightly on his wife's name. "Still working on that." He pulled the wagon up in front of the house just as a man emerged from the barn. He was older than Owen, maybe 50, with gray streaking his dark hair and a weathered face that spoke of a lifetime outdoors. "Tom," Owen called, "come meet Penelope Edwards. She's going to be staying with us, helping out around the place." Tom's eyes went to Penelope's belly, widened, then quickly returned to her face. To his credit, he simply nodded and touched his hat brim. "Madam, welcome to the Fairfield Ranch. Thank you." She let Owen help her down from the wagon, grateful for his steady hand. Inside, the house was clean but sparse, with furniture that looked handmade and solid. The main room held a stone fireplace, a table with chairs, a few comfortable seats. She could see a kitchen area, and Owen showed her down a hallway to 2 bedrooms and a small room he used as an office. "This was going to be the nursery," he said, opening the door to the smaller bedroom. "But Mary never got the chance to use it. You should have it. More space for when the baby comes." The room had a good bed, a dresser, a rocking chair by the window, and empty shelves waiting to be filled. Afternoon light streamed through the curtains, making everything glow soft gold. Penelope turned to him, emotion swelling in her chest. "Owen, I do not know how to thank you. Make me a decent meal." He was already backing toward the door, clearly uncomfortable with her gratitude. "That will be thanks enough. I will bring your bag in and give you some time to settle. Supper is usually around 6. No rush, though. Take your time." He left her alone, and she sank down onto the bed, pressing her hands to her face. The mattress was comfortable. The room was warm, and for the first time in months she felt safe. She let herself cry then, quiet tears of relief and exhaustion and gratitude, letting out all the fear she had been holding inside. After a while, she washed her face in the basin on the dresser, unpacked her few belongings, and made her way to the kitchen. Owen and Tom were out working, so she had the space to herself. She found the pantry reasonably well stocked with basics, though clearly organized by someone who had no real system. She found potatoes, onions, dried beef, flour, canned tomatoes, beans, and various spices. By the time Owen and Tom came in for supper, she had made a simple but hearty meal of beef stew, fresh biscuits, and dried apple pie. The 2 men stood in the doorway staring at the table like it was a miracle. "Is that actual food?" Tom asked. "Sit down before she changes her mind," Owen said. Penelope dished out generous portions, and for a few minutes the only sound was eating. Tom actually groaned after his first bite of biscuit. "Madam, you can stay as long as you want, forever. I am never eating Owen's cooking again." "It was not that bad," Owen protested. "You made coffee so strong last week I saw colors that do not exist," Tom said. "This woman is a saint and a miracle worker." Penelope found herself smiling, really smiling for the first time since she had left Philadelphia. "It is just simple food." "Simple food that does not taste like boot leather," Tom said. "That is fancy cooking out here." They ate together as the sun set outside, and Penelope learned bits and pieces about the ranch. Owen and Tom ran the operation with occasional help from neighboring ranchers during roundup and branding. They sold cattle twice a year, kept enough horses for their needs, and were slowly building up their herd. It was hard work, Owen admitted, but it was honest work and the land was good. "What about you?" Owen asked as they finished the pie. "You said you were educated." "I was a governess in Philadelphia for a wealthy family." She kept her voice steady. "It did not work out." Owen nodded, asking nothing more, and she was grateful. Tom mumbled something about checking on a horse and disappeared outside, tactfully leaving them alone. "The offer stands," Owen said quietly. "Stay as long as you need. No one here will judge you, Penelope. Life is hard enough without people making it harder." "You lost your wife," she said, surprising herself with her boldness. "Do you want to talk about it?" He was quiet for a long time, his hands wrapped around his coffee cup. "Mary was everything to me. We met in Kansas, got married, came out here to make our dream come true. She got sick that first winter, and by spring she was gone. I thought about selling the place, going back east, but I could not. This was our dream. I owed it to her to see it through. She would be proud of what you have built. Maybe." He looked up at her. "She would have liked you. Mary always helped people. She would have insisted on bringing you here." Penelope felt the weight of those words, the trust implicit in them. "I will do right by you, Owen, I promise." "I believe you." The days fell into a rhythm after that. Penelope woke early and made breakfast for the three of them, hearty meals that fueled the men through their long days of work. She cleaned the house, organized the pantry, mended clothes, and prepared dinners that made Tom declare her a genius. Her body was heavy and awkward, but she refused to be idle. Owen had given her a chance when no one else would, and she was determined to prove her worth. Owen himself was a mystery she was slowly unraveling. He was quiet but not cold, observant but not intrusive. He worked from dawn until dusk, pushing himself hard, but he always made time to check on her, to ask if she needed anything, to bring her small things from town. A book he thought she might enjoy, fresh eggs from a neighbor, a rocking chair cushion that one of the ranch wives had sewn. She caught him watching her sometimes when he thought she was not looking, his expression unreadable. She wondered what he saw when he looked at her. A woman heavy with another man's child, a stranger disrupting his carefully ordered life, or something else. 3 weeks after her arrival, she was hanging laundry on the line behind the house when a sharp pain seized her belly. She gasped and grabbed the clothesline for support, breathing through it until it passed. Not yet, she thought fiercely. Too early still, but the baby had other ideas. That night, as they sat around the table after supper, another pain hit, stronger this time. She must have made a sound because both men looked at her immediately. "Penelope." Owen was on his feet in an instant. "I think it is time," she managed, "but it is too soon. I have another 3 or 4 weeks still. Babies come when they want to come." Owen was already grabbing his coat. "Tom, stay with her. I am going for Doc Harrison." "Owen, it is getting dark and the ride to town is dangerous at night." She tried to stand, another contraction making her grip the table. "I will be fine. You just hold on, you hear me? I will be back with the doctor before you know it." He was out the door before she could protest further. Tom helped her to her room, his weathered face creased with worry. "You are going to be fine, madam. Owen rides like the devil himself when he has a mind to. He will have the doc here in no time." Penelope nodded, trying to believe him as another wave of pain rolled through her. Tom brought her water and towels and tried his best to be helpful, though he was clearly out of his depth. She would have laughed if she had the breath for it. Owen made the 5-mile ride to town in record time, his horse flying across the dark prairie like a ghost. He pounded on Doc Harrison's door until the older man appeared, taking one look at Owen's face and grabbing his bag without a word. They rode back together, pushing the horses hard, and Owen found himself praying for the first time since Mary had died. Let her be all right. Let the baby be all right. Let me not lose someone else. The thought startled him. When had Penelope become someone he could not bear to lose? She had been there less than a month, and yet the house already felt like a home again with her in it. He heard her humming while she cooked. He saw flowers on the table and curtains in the windows and the small touches that made a place more than just shelter. He had grown used to her quiet presence, her gentle smile, the way she listened when he talked about the ranch. He had grown used to not being alone. They burst into the house to find Tom pacing the main room. "She is in there," he said, jerking his head toward the bedroom. "Seems to be coming fast." Doc Harrison went straight in and Owen started to follow, but the doctor held up a hand. "Give us some privacy, son. I will call you if I need you." Owen paced the main room with Tom, every cry from the bedroom making him flinch. He had not been there when Mary died, had been out checking on the cattle when she took her last breath, and Tom had to ride out to find him. He had missed saying goodbye. He would not miss this. "She is strong," Tom said quietly. "She will be fine." "You do not know that." "No," Tom admitted, "but I believe it. That woman has steel in her spine. She came out here alone and pregnant with nothing but a bag and $63. That takes courage most men do not have." "How did you know about the money?" "She told me while you were in town last week. We got to talking. She has been through hell, Owen. Whatever happened back east broke her heart, but it did not break her. She is a fighter." Owen nodded, holding on to those words. A fighter. Yes, that was Penelope. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. Owen had worn a path in the floorboards when he finally heard it, the thin, wavering cry of a newborn. He was at the door in an instant, but Doc Harrison was already coming out, wiping his hands on a towel. The old man was smiling. "You have a healthy baby boy in there. Came early but strong. Mother is exhausted but doing well. Can I see her? Give me a minute to get things cleaned up, then yes." When Owen finally entered the room, Penelope was propped up in bed, pale and exhausted, with a tiny bundle in her arms. She looked up at him, and her eyes were full of tears and joy and something else he could not name. "Owen," she said softly, "meet my son." He moved closer, looking down at the impossibly small person wrapped in blankets. The baby had a shock of dark hair and a red, wrinkled face, and his tiny hand waved in the air like he was reaching for something. "He is perfect," Owen said, his voice rough. "What will you name him?" Penelope looked down at her son, then back at Owen. "I was thinking Thomas Owen Edwards, after the two men who saved our lives." Owen felt something crack open in his chest, something that had been frozen since Mary died. "That is a good, strong name. Tom for short." She smiled tiredly. "If that is all right with you both." "More than all right." He reached out, then hesitated. "May I?" She nodded, and he carefully took the baby, cradling the tiny weight against his chest. Little Tom blinked up at him with unfocused eyes, and Owen felt his heart turn over. He had wanted children with Mary, had dreamed of filling this house with laughter and noise. This was not his child, but holding him felt right in a way he could not explain. "You both belong here now," he said quietly, looking at Penelope. "For as long as you want to stay. This is your home." She looked at him for a long moment, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Thank you for everything." He handed the baby back carefully and backed toward the door. "Get some rest, both of you. We will be right outside if you need anything." That night, Owen lay in his own bed listening to the small sounds of the baby down the hall, the soft murmur of Penelope's voice as she soothed him. The house felt alive again, filled with purpose and possibility. He stared at the ceiling and admitted to himself what he had been avoiding for weeks. He was falling in love with Penelope Edwards. It was too soon, too fast, too complicated. She had just had another man's child. She was vulnerable and dependent on him. He had no right to feel this way, but feelings did not care about rights or propriety or common sense. They just were. He would keep it to himself, he decided. He would give her time and space. He would be her employer, her friend, nothing more. If she chose to leave in a few months, he would help her go with no strings attached. That was the honorable thing to do, even if it broke his heart. The winter that followed was hard, with snow piling high and temperatures dropping below zero. But inside the ranch house, there was warmth and life. Penelope recovered her strength quickly, and little Tom grew fat and healthy. Owen found himself making excuses to be inside more, to hear the baby laugh, to watch Penelope rock him by the fire. She was a natural mother, patient and loving, singing soft songs and telling stories. She was also an excellent housekeeper, keeping the place clean and organized, mending and sewing, stretching their supplies to make hearty meals even in the depths of winter. Tom the foreman had taken to eating every meal in the main house, claiming the bunkhouse was too cold, though Owen suspected it had more to do with Penelope's cooking and company. Christmas came, and Penelope insisted on making it special. She baked cookies and a turkey, decorated with pine branches and berries, made presents for everyone with her limited supplies. She gave Owen a new shirt she had sewn from fabric she had carefully saved money to buy, and she gave Tom a warm scarf. Owen had bought her books from the catalog and a silver rattle for the baby. They sat around the fire that night, the baby asleep in Penelope's arms, and Owen thought it was the best Christmas he had had in years. "I am glad you came here," he said quietly. Penelope looked at him across the firelight. "So am I. I was so scared that day I arrived. I thought I had reached the end of everything, but it was really just the beginning." "Do you ever regret it, leaving Philadelphia?" "Not for a moment." Her voice was firm. "I left behind people who did not value me, who saw me as disposable. Here, I have people who see me as I am. That is worth everything." Tom cleared his throat and stood up. "Well, I am going to check on the horses one more time before bed. You two have a good night." He left, and Owen and Penelope were alone with the sleeping baby. The fire crackled, and outside snow fell soft and steady. "Owen," Penelope said softly, "can I ask you something? Anything? Why did you really bring me here?" "Tom told me about the kindness people showed you and Mary, but there is more to it than that. Is there not?" He was quiet for a long time, trying to find the right words. "After Mary died, I was angry. Angry at God, at the world, at myself for not being able to save her. I shut myself off from everything but work. I thought if I just kept moving, kept pushing, I would not have to feel anything. But then I saw you standing on that sidewalk, 8 months pregnant and so determined not to cry, and I saw myself. I saw someone who had lost everything but was still fighting, still trying, and I thought maybe we could help each other find our way back to living instead of just surviving." "And have we?" she asked gently. He looked at her, at the baby in her arms, at the life that had returned to his house. "Yes, at least I have. You gave me a reason to come home at night. You made this place feel like more than just a house. You brought joy back. You gave me and my son a home when we had nothing. You treated me with respect and kindness when the world had taught me to expect neither. You showed me that not all men are like Thomas." She stopped, her expression tightening. "Thomas was the father?" Owen asked carefully. "Thomas Blackwood. Son of the family I worked for. He promised me marriage, promised me everything, then disappeared the moment I told him about the baby. His family paid me to leave and never come back." She looked down at her son. "I named my Tom after your foreman, not after his father. His father does not deserve to have his name carried on." "The man was a fool," Owen said fiercely. Any man who would abandon you and his child is not worth remembering. I know that now. She met his eyes. I know a lot of things now that I did not before. I know what a good man looks like. I know what real kindness is. I know what it feels like to be valued for who I am, not just what I can provide. The air between them seemed to shimmer with unspoken things. Owen wanted to cross to her, to take her hand, to tell her everything he was feeling, but he held himself back. It was too soon. She needed time. You should get some rest, he said finally, standing up. The baby will have you up again in a few hours. She nodded, though her eyes held something like disappointment. Good night, Owen. Good night, Penelope. Spring came slowly, the snow melting to reveal grass and wildflowers. The cattle that had survived the winter looked thin but alive, and there was work to be done. Calves were born, fences needed mending, and the whole cycle of ranch life began again. Little Tom was 6 months old now, a happy baby who smiled at everyone and was starting to sit up on his own. Penelope had made friends with some of the neighboring ranch wives, women who had come calling during the winter out of curiosity and stayed because they liked her. They brought baby clothes and advice, and Penelope soaked it all in, grateful for the community. Owen watched her bloom like the wildflowers. She laughed more now, sang while she worked, played with her son in the sunshine. She was beautiful, he thought, not in a delicate, fragile way, but in a strong, real way. She was beautiful in her competence, her kindness, her fierce love for her child. And he was hopelessly in love with her. He tried to hide it, but Tom knew. The older man had taken to giving him knowing looks and making comments about the future. A house needs a woman, Tom would say, and a boy needs a father, just saying. It is not that simple, Owen would reply. It is exactly that simple. You love her. She loves you, though both of you are too stubborn to admit it. Life is short, Owen. Do not waste time dancing around what is right in front of you. But Owen was not sure Penelope loved him. She was grateful to him, yes. She cared about him, certainly. But love, that was something else entirely, and he would not put her in a position where she felt obligated to return his feelings out of gratitude or dependence. The moment of truth came in May, on a day when the world smelled like grass and possibility. Owen had ridden out to check the northern pasture, and when he came back, he found Penelope in the garden she had planted, little Tom sitting on a blanket nearby, waving his hands at the clouds. "Owen," she called when she saw him. "Come see. The tomatoes are coming up." He dismounted and walked over, admiring the neat rows of vegetables. "You have a gift for this. I like watching things grow." She stood, brushing dirt from her skirt. "It feels hopeful." They stood there in the sunshine, the baby babbling happily, and Owen felt his resolve crumbling. He could not keep pretending. He could not keep hiding what he felt. "Penelope," he said, "I need to tell you something." She looked at him, her eyes questioning. "What is it? When you came here, I told myself it was just about helping someone in need. I told myself it was about honoring Mary's memory by showing kindness, and that was true at first. But somewhere along the way it became about more than that. It became about you." She went very still, her expression unreadable. He pushed on, knowing he had to finish. "I love you. I think I have loved you since that first day when you stood on the sidewalk refusing to give up. I love your strength and your kindness and the way you sing to your son. I love the way you made this house a home again. I love everything about you, and I know I have no right to say any of this. You have been through so much, and you owe me nothing. If you want to leave, I will help you. If you want to stay as my employee, we will never speak of this again. But I could not keep it inside anymore. You deserve to know the truth." Penelope was looking at him with tears streaming down her face, and his heart sank. He had ruined everything. He had made her uncomfortable in the only safe place she had. "I am sorry," he started to say, but she cut him off. You know what I thought the first time I saw you?" She asked, her voice shaking. "I thought you were the answer to a prayer I had been too scared to speak out loud. I thought maybe, just maybe, there was still kindness in the world. And then you brought me here and gave me safety and respect and a place to raise my son. You never judged me. You never made me feel less than. You just saw me as a person worthy of care. Penelope." He said her name like a prayer. "I fought falling in love with you," she continued. "I told myself it was just gratitude. I told myself I was damaged goods, that I had no right to think about love when I had a child by another man. I told myself you were just being kind, and that I was reading too much into every look, every smile, every small gesture. But I cannot fight it anymore. I love you, Owen Fairfield. I love the way you care for your land and your animals. I love the way you are gentle with my son even though he is not yours. I love the way you see me not as broken but as whole. I love you with everything I am." He closed the distance between them in 2 strides, cupping her face in his hands. "Can I kiss you, please?" she whispered. He kissed her gently at first, almost reverently, tasting salt from her tears and something sweet underneath. She wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him back with a passion that took his breath away. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "Marry me," he said. "Not because you feel obligated, not because you need security. Marry me because you want to build a life together. Marry me because you love me and I love you and we deserve to be happy." "Yes," she was laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, Owen, I will marry you." The baby chose that moment to let out an indignant cry and they broke apart laughing. Penelope picked up Tom, who immediately stopped fussing and reached for Owen. Without hesitation, Owen took him, settling the baby against his shoulder. "Hey there, little man. Your mama and I are getting married. What do you think about that?" Tom grabbed Owen's ear and giggled, and Penelope pressed her hand to her mouth, fresh tears spilling over. "He loves you," she said softly. "I love him too." Owen looked at her over the baby's head. "I know I am not his father by blood, but I would like to be his father in every way that matters, if you will let me. There is nothing I want more." They told Tom the foreman that evening, and the old man actually whooped with joy. "About time you two figured it out. I was starting to think I would have to lock you in a room together." "You knew?" Penelope asked, blushing. "Madam, everyone within 5 miles knew. The two of you have been making eyes at each other for months. Now, when is the wedding?" They decided on June, giving them time to make arrangements, but not so long that they had to wait. Penelope wrote a letter to her mother, who she had not spoken to since leaving Philadelphia, telling her about Owen and the wedding. Her mother wrote back with cautious approval and a promise to send a family heirloom necklace for the ceremony. The neighboring ranch families were thrilled, and the women descended on Penelope with offers to help with her dress, the food, the flowers. It seemed everyone had been rooting for them. Owen rode into town and bought a simple gold band, spending more than he could afford because he wanted it to be perfect. He also filed papers to legally adopt little Tom, wanting there to be no question that the boy was his son in every way that mattered. The night before the wedding, as tradition dictated, Penelope stayed at the neighboring ranch with Tom while Owen remained home. He sat on the porch with Foreman Tom, drinking whiskey and looking at the stars. "Mary would have liked her," Tom said quietly. "I think so too." Owen took a sip of whiskey. "I was afraid at first that loving Penelope meant betraying Mary's memory, but I do not think that anymore. I think Mary would want me to be happy. She would want me to live. She would. Mary had the biggest heart of anyone I ever knew. She would love Penelope for making you smile again." "I am going to be a husband and a father," Owen said, the reality settling over him. "That is terrifying." You have been a father for months now, son. You just did not have the paperwork. And you will be a good husband because you are a good man. Trust yourself. The wedding took place on a perfect June day, with wildflowers blooming everywhere and the sky a brilliant blue. They held the ceremony outside at the ranch, with the minister from town officiating and about 30 neighbors and friends in attendance. Penelope wore a dress of cream lace that the ranch wives had helped her make, and she carried wildflowers. Her mother's necklace sparkled at her throat. But what Owen would remember most was her face when she came toward him, radiant with joy. She was not nervous or scared. She was certain, the way he was certain, that this was right. They spoke their vows under the endless sky, promising to love and honor and cherish, to stand together through whatever came. When Owen slipped the ring onto her finger and the minister pronounced them husband and wife, he kissed her like she was his whole world, because she was. Little Tom, held by Foreman Tom, chose that moment to shriek with what sounded like approval, and everyone laughed. It was perfect. The celebration that followed was full of food and music and dancing. Owen danced with his wife, holding her close, breathing in the scent of wildflowers in her hair. "Happy," he murmured against her ear. "Impossibly happy," she replied. "I did not know life could be like this. Neither did I, not anymore, but you showed me." As the sun set and the stars came out, they stood together watching their friends and neighbors celebrate. Foreman Tom was teaching one of the ranch children how to dance. The women were cleaning up food. The men were smoking and talking cattle prices. It was community family home. "I have something to tell you," Penelope said quietly. Owen looked at her, suddenly concerned. "What is it?" "I am pregnant." She watched his face carefully. "I have known for about 2 weeks. I wanted to wait until after the wedding to tell you so you did not think I was trying to trap you." "Trap me?" He stared at her. "Penelope, we are married. We made love. Of course a baby might happen." "That is wonderful news. Truly," her eyes searched his. "You are not upset." "I am thrilled." He pulled her against him, one hand going to her still flat stomach. "Another child, our child. When? Early spring, I think, February or March. Then we will have 2 children before Tom is even 2 years old." He laughed, the sound full of wonder. "This house is going to be very full and very loud." "Is that all right?" "It is more than all right. It is everything." That night, after the guests had gone and little Tom was asleep in his crib, Owen carried Penelope over the threshold of their bedroom. He set her down gently, his hands going to the buttons of her dress. "I love you, Mrs. Fairfield," he said. "I love you, Mr. Fairfield." They made love slowly, tenderly, learning each other with reverence and joy. This was not about obligation or necessity. This was about choosing each other, about building something real and lasting. Afterward they lay tangled together, her head on his chest, his hand tracing lazy patterns on her back. "Tell me about Philadelphia," he said. "Tell me everything. I want to know all of you." So she did. She told him about growing up as the daughter of a seamstress, about working hard to educate herself, about getting the position as a governess. She told him about Thomas Blackwood and his lies, about the devastation when she realized she was pregnant and alone. She told him about the fear and the shame and the determination to survive. "I was so angry," she admitted. "At him, at myself, at the world. But now I am grateful, because all of that led me here to you, and I would go through it all again if this was where I ended up." "You never have to go through anything alone again," Owen promised. "Whatever comes, we face it together." "Together," she agreed. The summer passed in a haze of happiness. Owen worked the ranch with renewed energy, building up the herd, improving the land. Penelope tended her garden and cared for Tom and began preparations for the new baby. Her body was changing again, her belly beginning to swell, and Owen found himself fascinated by every development. "You are staring," she would say, laughing. "I am appreciating," he would reply. "You are beautiful." She glowed with health and happiness, and everyone who saw them together could see the love between them. Foreman Tom joked that they made him want to find a wife of his own, maybe settle down in town. "But then who would keep you in line?" he would add. "Guess I am stuck here." In August, a letter arrived from Philadelphia. Penelope opened it with shaking hands, and Owen watched her face go pale as she read. "What is it?" he asked immediately. "It is from Thomas Blackwood's sister, Elizabeth. She says Thomas died 3 months ago. Typhoid. She thought I should know." Owen took the letter and read it himself. It was brief and formal, simply stating the facts. Thomas Blackwood had died, and Elizabeth felt that Penelope, as the mother of his child, deserved to be informed. "How do you feel?" Owen asked carefully. Penelope was quiet for a long time. "I do not feel anything," she finally said. "I thought I would feel something. Satisfaction, maybe, or sadness. But there is nothing. He is a stranger to me now. The only thing I feel is grateful that Tom will never have to meet him, never have to know a man who would have rejected him." "Tom has a father," Owen said firmly. "Me, Thomas Blackwood, was nothing but a donor. I am the one who will raise him, teach him, love him. Blood does not make a father, love makes a father." She threw her arms around him, holding tight. "I do not deserve you." "Yes, you do. You deserve every good thing, Penelope. And I am going to spend the rest of my life making sure you get it." As fall arrived and the leaves turned gold, they settled into the rhythms of married life. Owen would come in from working to find Penelope cooking dinner, Tom playing on the floor, and the house filled with warmth and laughter. He would kiss his wife, scoop up his son, and think about how close he had come to missing all of this. Penelope's belly grew round with their child, and Owen found himself constantly touching it, marveling at the kicks and movements. This baby was his, made from their love, and the reality of it filled him with awe. "What do you hope for?" Penelope asked one night as they lay in bed, his hand on her stomach. "Boy or girl, healthy," he said immediately. "That is all that matters, but if I am being honest, I would not mind a girl. Tom needs a sister to keep him humble." "A daughter," Penelope said softly. "Imagine that. A little girl running around the ranch. She will be beautiful like her mother, and strong and stubborn and smart." "She will be spoiled rotten by her father," Penelope countered. "You will not be able to say no to her." "Probably true." He kissed her shoulder. "But we will cross that bridge when we come to it." Winter arrived early that year, with snow falling in November, but the house was warm and well stocked, and they were ready. Penelope taught Tom to walk, and the toddler spent his days careening around the house, getting into everything. Owen would come in covered in snow to find his son trying to climb the furniture and his wife laughing at the chaos. "He is fearless," Penelope would say. "He gets that from his mother," Owen would reply. Christmas was magical with a toddler. They made simple presents and decorated the house with pine boughs. Tom was fascinated by the firelight and kept trying to touch it, giving them both heart attacks. They stayed up late on Christmas Eve putting together a rocking horse that Foreman Tom had carved for the boy. "I think we are going to need a bigger house," Penelope said, looking at the toys accumulating in the corner. "With 2 children, we are going to be tripping over things." "I have been thinking about that," Owen admitted. "Come spring, after the baby is born and things settle down, I thought I could add on 2 more rooms, make the place bigger." "Really?" Her eyes lit up. "Really? This is our home, our family. We should have space to grow." She kissed him, slow and sweet. "Have I mentioned lately that I love you?" "Not in the last hour. I was starting to get worried." She laughed and settled against him, her belly pressed between them. "I love you, Owen Fairfield, more than I ever thought possible." February arrived with bitter cold and blinding snow. Penelope was huge now, uncomfortable and impatient. She waddled rather than walked, and Owen could see the exhaustion in her eyes. "Any day now," Doc Harrison said during his weekly visit. "Baby is in position and ready. Could be today, could be next week." It was 3 days later, in the middle of a blizzard, that Penelope woke Owen in the night. "It is time." He was up and moving immediately, but when he looked out the window, his heart sank. The snow was coming down so thick he could barely see the barn. There was no way to get to town for the doctor. "I will go," he said. "I will get through somehow. There is no time." Penelope gripped his hand, her face tight with pain. "This baby is coming fast. Get Tom. He will know what to do." Owen ran through the snow to the bunkhouse, pounding on the door until Foreman Tom emerged, half-dressed and alarmed. "Baby is coming. Doc cannot get here in this storm. I need you." They ran back to the house together, and Tom took charge with the confidence of a man who had delivered countless calves and foals. "Owen, get me hot water, clean towels, and that medical book on the shelf. Then you are going to help me bring this baby into the world." The next hours were the longest of Owen's life. He held Penelope's hand as she labored, wiping her face, murmuring encouragement. Foreman Tom coached her through it, and when dawn broke gray and cold, a baby's cry filled the room. "It is a girl," Tom announced, holding up a red-faced, squalling infant. "A healthy baby girl." Owen looked at his daughter, his heart so full he thought it might burst. Tom carefully cleaned her and wrapped her in a blanket, then placed her in Penelope's arms. "She is perfect," Penelope breathed, tears streaming down her face. "Owen, look at her." He sat on the edge of the bed, looking at his wife and daughter, and felt complete. "She is beautiful, just like I knew she would be." "What should we name her?" Penelope asked. Owen thought of his mother, who had died when he was young. "Rose, after my mother, Rose Ann Fairfield." "Rose," Penelope repeated, smiling. "It is perfect." Little Tom, who was almost 2 now, was brought in to meet his sister. He looked at the tiny baby with wide eyes, then gently patted her head. "Baby," he said solemnly. "That is right, Tom. This is your sister, Rose. You are going to help us take care of her." The toddler nodded seriously, and Owen felt his eyes sting with tears. This was his family. His wife, his son, his daughter. He had never imagined he could be this happy. The storm cleared by afternoon, and Doc Harrison made it out to the ranch the next day to check on mother and baby. He pronounced them both healthy and doing well, though he gave Owen a stern look. "You were lucky it went smoothly. Next time, make sure I can get here." "We will try to time it better," Penelope said with a tired smile. That spring and summer were a blur of diapers and feedings and precious little sleep. Rose was a good baby, but she was still a baby, and combined with a rambunctious toddler, Owen and Penelope were exhausted. But they were happy. True to his word, Owen began adding on to the house. With help from neighboring ranchers, they built 2 new bedrooms and expanded the kitchen. The house grew and changed, becoming something grand by frontier standards. "We are building a legacy," Owen said one evening, surveying the construction. "This house will stand for generations. Our children will grow up here, and someday their children will too." Penelope leaned against him, Rose in her arms and Tom holding onto her skirt. "I never imagined this when I stepped off that stagecoach. I was just trying to survive the next day. But you gave me so much more than survival. You gave me a life worth living." "We gave that to each other," Owen corrected. "I was just existing before you came. You reminded me what living felt like." The years flowed by like water. Tom grew tall and strong, following Owen everywhere, learning to ride and rope and work the cattle. Rose grew into a spirited little girl with her mother's determination and her father's stubbornness. She could climb anything, and she kept her parents perpetually terrified with her fearlessness. 2 more children followed. Another boy, Michael, in 1887, and finally a girl, Emma, in 1889. The house was always full of noise and laughter, and the controlled chaos of raising 4 children. The ranch prospered under Owen's careful management. They expanded their herd, bought more land, built a reputation for quality cattle. Penelope managed the accounts and proved to have a sharp head for business. Together, they made the ranch into something substantial, something that would support their family for generations. Foreman Tom eventually did retire and move to town, though he visited often, always bearing presents for his grandchildren, as he called them. A younger man, Jack, took over as foreman, and the cycle continued. On their 10th anniversary, Owen took Penelope back to the spot where he had first kissed her, the garden where she had told him she loved him. The children were spending the night with neighbors, and for once, they had the house to themselves. "You remember standing here?" he asked, holding both her hands. "I remember everything about that day. I remember being terrified and hopeful all at once. I remember thinking I could not possibly deserve you, that somehow I had tricked you into loving me. Owen." She cupped his face in her hands. "You did not trick me into anything. I fell in love with you because you are good and kind and strong, because you saw me when I needed to be seen, because you loved my son as your own, because you gave me a home and a family and a future I never thought I could have." "You gave me all those things too," he said. "After Mary died, I thought my chance at happiness was over, but you showed me that life gives second chances, that love can come again if you are brave enough to open your heart. We were both brave," she said, "and look what we built together." They looked back at the house, lights glowing warm in the windows, the barn and corrals and pastures spreading out around it. This was their kingdom, built on love and hard work and faith in each other. "I would do it all again," Penelope said. "Every hard moment, every scared day. Because it all led here, so would I." He kissed her softly. "I love you, Penelope Fairfield, today, tomorrow, always." "Always," she echoed. The children grew. Tom became a fine young man who loved the ranch as much as Owen did. He went off to agricultural college, but came back eager to apply what he had learned. Rose married a neighboring rancher's son and moved just 5 miles away, close enough to visit constantly. Michael became a veterinarian, traveling around the territory helping ranchers with their herds. Emma, their youngest, surprised everyone by becoming a teacher, opening a school in Cody. Owen and Penelope grew old together, their hair turning silver, their hands gnarled from years of work. But they were together, and that was everything. They sat on the porch in the evenings, watching the sun set over land they had built into something lasting, surrounded by children and grandchildren and the life they had created. "I was thinking," Penelope said one evening when they were both in their 60s, "about that day I arrived in Cody. About how lost and scared I was. I remember," Owen said, taking her hand. "I saw you standing on that sidewalk and thought you were the bravest person I had ever seen. I did not feel brave. I felt desperate. Bravery and desperation look very similar sometimes, but you were brave, Penelope. You came west with nothing but hope and determination. You trusted me, a complete stranger. You built a life from nothing. We built it together." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "That is the important part, together." "Together," he agreed. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge one by one. Their children were settled, their grandchildren were thriving, and the ranch would go on long after they were gone. They had built something that would last. "You have any regrets?" Penelope asked. Owen thought about it carefully. "I regret that Mary died so young. I regret that she never got to see what the ranch became. But I do not regret anything that came after. I do not regret loving you or building this life with you. That has been nothing but joy." "I regret what Thomas did to me," Penelope said slowly. "I regret the pain and fear and shame, but I do not regret Tom because he led me here, and I do not regret anything that came after. You and our children in this life have been the greatest gift I could have asked for." "We have been lucky," Owen said. "We have been more than lucky. We have been blessed." As the night deepened and the air grew cool, they went inside to the home they had built together. The house that had started as a lonely bachelor's dwelling and had become filled with love and laughter and life. The house where they had raised their children and would someday welcome great-grandchildren. Tom, now running the ranch, stopped by the next morning with his wife and 2 young sons. "Wanted to see if you needed anything from town," he said. "And the boys wanted to visit their grandparents." Owen scooped up his grandsons, now 5 and 3, making them shriek with laughter. Penelope brought out fresh cookies, and they all sat around the kitchen table that had seen countless meals and conversations and celebrations. "Tell us the story again," the 5-year-old begged, "about how Grandma came here." Tom looked at his mother, who nodded with a smile. "Well," Tom began, settling back in his chair. "It was a long time ago, in 1883. Your grandmother was very brave and came all the way from Philadelphia by herself. She arrived in Cody 8 months pregnant with me, with just 1 bag and a heart full of hope. And your grandfather, who was a lonely cowboy, saw her and said she belonged here. You both belong here now," Owen interjected softly, remembering that day so clearly. "That is what I said." "And we did," Penelope added, reaching across the table to take Owen's hand. "We belonged there from the very first moment. We just had to find each other." "And then what happened?" the 3-year-old asked. "Then Grandpa brought Grandma here to the ranch, and she had me, and then they fell in love and got married and had your Uncle Michael and Aunt Rose and Aunt Emma. And then I grew up and married your mother and had you too. And now here we all are, one big family." The boys seemed satisfied with this, turning their attention to their cookies. But Tom caught his parents' eyes and smiled, understanding more now as an adult and father than he had as a child. Understanding the courage it took, the trust, the leap of faith. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for giving me this life, this family, this home." "You gave us just as much," Penelope said, her eyes misty. "You were the reason we found each other. You were the beginning of everything." As the family gathered around the table, 3 generations connected by love and choice and determination, Owen looked at his wife and felt his heart swell with gratitude. They had taken broken pieces and built something whole. They had taken loss and created abundance. They had taken fear and forged courage. They had arrived as strangers and become family. Owen and Penelope lived into their 70s, long lives by frontier standards. When Owen finally passed away peacefully in his sleep in 1904, Penelope mourned deeply, but found comfort in their children and grandchildren. She lived 2 more years, spending her days telling stories and passing on family history, making sure the next generations understood where they came from. When Penelope died in 1906, she was laid to rest beside Owen on a hill overlooking the ranch, with a simple stone that read, "Beloved Wife and Mother." Tom placed wildflowers on both graves, the same wildflowers his mother had carried at her wedding. The ranch continued on, passing to Tom and then to his children. The house stood strong, expanded again over the years but keeping its original heart. Each generation added their own touches, but they all knew the story. They all knew about the day a pregnant woman stepped off a stagecoach with nothing, and a lonely cowboy gave her everything. It became family legend, the story told at every gathering, the reminder that family is not just about blood but about choice and love and faith. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for help, and the kindest thing you can do is offer it. The land remained in the Fairfield family for generations, a testament to what Owen and Penelope built together. And somewhere in that house, in frames on the walls, were photographs of them. Owen tall and strong beside his wife, their children gathered around them. All of them together, all of them belonging. Because that was what mattered in the end. Not where they came from or what they had lost, but what they had found in each other. Not the mistakes of the past, but the life they had chosen to build. Not the fear and pain, but the love and joy that came after. Owen had been right that first day, though he could not have known how right. She arrived 8 months pregnant, desperate and alone. He was a lonely cowboy with a broken heart and an empty house. And together, they became a family. They became home. They became exactly where they both belonged. The story ended not with their deaths, but with their legacy living on in every child and grandchild who worked that land and loved that place. It ended with proof that sometimes the worst moments lead to the best things, that love can bloom even in the hardest soil, that saying yes to helping someone can change not just their life but yours too. On the hill where Owen and Penelope rested, wildflowers grew every spring. Descendants would climb that hill and sit with their ancestors, telling them about their lives, their dreams, their own love stories. And if you were quiet and the wind was right, you could almost hear whispers of the past. Laughter and love and the certainty that this was where they belonged. Always and forever, this was home.